Democrats would force some sort of negotiation at 3 o'clock in the morning and try to hoist this upon the American people and then get on their jets and go home for their holiday and pretend and think that we're going to go along with that. So we're going to do something different. We're going to do the responsible thing. Republicans are going to continue to govern and do the right thing morally, legally, and politically. We are going to take care of those who take care of us. The employees in the Department of Homeland Security have gone without funding and without paychecks for 42 days. It's the second longest shutdown in U.S. history, bested only by the longest shutdown in U.S. history that these same radical Democrats hoisted upon the government in the fall of last year. 42 days they've gone without pay. We've had, by some estimates, close to 500 TSA agents who have resigned from their jobs, and who could blame them? They've gone half the fiscal year without a regular paycheck. We can't ask that of anyone. And the lines around the airlines and at the airports have been wrapped around the buildings because of all this turmoil. We are very grateful to have a strong commander-in-chief in the White House who has taken real leadership. President Trump has already ordered by executive order that TSA agents will be paid, and that machinery is in process right now. The Office of Management and Budget is working through that to make sure that that happens, and we will reduce the lines and the waits at the airlines, and we'll make sure that those who are protecting us are paid. But what we are going to present and what we're going to vote on this floor, our Rules Committee is working through this right now. We're going to put a clean, simple, continuing resolution that will go until May 22nd. It's just a number of weeks, to allow for all those who sacrificially serve the country and protect other Americans. All these agencies, 10 agencies under the Department of Homeland Security, will continue at their current funding levels to make sure that they are protected. We're going to send that over to the Senate, and we hope that they'll accept that. They can do it in record time just like that with the unanimous consent. They could do that as early as Monday. In the meantime, TSA will be paid. We will have done our jobs, and we will protect the homeland, because that is the most basic responsibility of the Congress, is to protect the American people. We're not playing political games on this. We encourage some of our Democrats, hopefully we'll have some of our Democrats in the House who go along with this and stop the pain that's being forced upon these people. The reason that we can't accept this ridiculousness, okay, is because we're not going to risk not funding the agencies that keep the American people safe. The Department of Homeland Security is the third largest department in the federal government. It has 10 agencies beneath it. It's not just TSA, it's also FEMA, the Coast Guard, all these agencies that keep us safe. We must fund them. This is not a game. Republicans will do the responsible and honorable thing, and Democrats will continue to play politics.
Mr. Speaker, thank you, Mr. Speaker. You and John Thune are not on the same page. You came out and criticized Democrats. He was the engineer behind this. Why are you guys not on the same page? And are you not extending the shutdown? If you were to accept what the Senate had passed, this could end tonight and the TSA lines would shrink.
I wouldn't call John Thune the engineer of this. Chuck Schumer and the Democrats in the Senate. Chuck Schumer and the Democrats in the Senate have forced this upon the Senate. I have to protect the House. Let me answer the question, Chad. I have to protect the House, and I have to protect the American people. That's our responsibility. Our colleagues on this side understand this is not a game. We are not playing their games. These people want open borders, and they want criminal, illegal aliens in the country. They do not want to enforce the law. They want to literally defund. You just read it in the bill here. They want to give $0 to enforcing federal immigration laws and keeping the border secure. That was the biggest issue in the election of 2024, the wide open border that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris hoisted upon the country. And 20 million, by some estimates, 20 million dangerous, criminal, illegal aliens included in that number came over the border. We have terrorists in our country. We have, obviously, murderers. They're putting it on display. And then these big blue cities that have sanctuary city policies, they're releasing these people onto the streets. They released them over the border when they came over under the Biden years. And that is the turmoil that we're facing right now, the very serious threats to the homeland and everybody. It's not just long lines at the airport. It is the danger and safety of everyone. We'll talk more after this is passed. We'll get it done.
All right, we're being joined now by Indiana Republican Congressman Marlin Stutzman. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us.
Ryan, great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
And would you say that your opinion is pretty similar to what the speaker just said there, where he had seemed pretty frustrated with Senate Republicans sending over that package that would have funded all the Department of Homeland Security, but notably would not have funded much of ICE's operations, especially when it comes to deportations? Why was that a bad deal?
Yeah, well, I think, Speaker Johnson is correct. We're just not going to play that game, because if we take a funding bill that defunds ICE then the Democrats are going to come back next time with something else that they don't like and they want to fund. And we have to move everything together, or nothing at all, basically. So I think that President or Speaker Johnson is being gracious, but at the same time, as you can hear in his voice, he's being very firm. You can blame Senator Schumer, but at the same, we also have to realize that the rules of the Senate need to be adjusted, and that President Trump has been pushing the Senate for quite some time to move past this filibuster rule that requires 10 Democrats to vote along with all the Republicans. So actually, you need 7 Democrats to vote with all the Republicans to get past the cloture vote. We could do that. Republicans in the Senate could move a bill through that would fund everything that we just talked about if they would realize that the filibuster rule is what's holding it up. And I really do fear, Ryan, that not governing around that filibuster rule could cost us the midterm elections.
But it appears that right now there's no votes there, or at least not enough votes there to get rid of the filibuster, whether it be, and it's not just, we're not just talking about Leader Thune here. There's a number of Republicans from different sides of the conservative spectrum who are saying, no way are we getting rid of the filibuster no matter what. It seems like there's just a discontent there.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, it's not just Leader Thune. I mean, Leader Thune is going to try to get his caucus all pulled together in the same direction. And there is a split in the Republican Senate caucus related to the filibuster rule. So he's really stuck with negotiating with Democrats. And I think that's what we as Republicans need to consider. Do we want to continue to negotiate with Democrats when they're going to defund one of our top priorities in the deportation and the Border Patrol? Or are we going to move around that and realize that the Democrats just aren't going to be helpful at all, and move past the filibuster rule? Keep the talking filibuster, but we're going to have to realize that the zombie filibuster is only working against us rather than actually working for us. And our party, the Republican voters, are expecting us to govern now that we have both the White House and both chambers of Congress.
So what happens next year? Because it seems like Democrats are not going to be on board with anything that that includes ICE funding for an extended period of time. Leader Schumer is saying that the bill that you sent back over, which is essentially a stopgap measure, is a non-starter for Senate Democrats. Now, that doesn't mean that you couldn't find 7 Democrats who might be willing to vote for it, because it is a short-term extension of ICE funding. It's not like an entire fiscal year package. So what do you think happens next if this is going to be dead on arrival in the Senate?
Well, it's putting the Senate Democrats in a really tough position. They all jetted out of town Friday morning after they passed it, or early Saturday morning, or I should say Friday morning when they passed it at 3 o'clock in the morning. And so I think that they need to be put in a spot where either they go back to Washington, D.C., continue negotiations and find a path forward, or they can pass this on a voice vote, which I hope that's what they decide to do, because this is really important to get our agents paid over at TSA, making sure our Coast Guard is funded, as well as the other agencies at DHS. So Senate Democrats have a tough decision to make. They can either let this go on. Thankfully, we've got a president who's going to find a way to get these government these employees paid in the interim. But my fear is that they're going to just continue to use that to try to leverage and defunding ICE in the long run. That's why we can't separate these two and accept the proposal the Senate passed.
And Congressman, as we continue to follow the latest with the war in Iran, it appears that the Trump administration and the Pentagon are sending additional troops to the Middle East. Do you think that is a wise move at this point right now?
Well, I do. I mean, we have got to finish this job. I mean, we have come so far so fast that it's going to take, a little bit more. The decisions to make going forward are going to be difficult, because these guys, the IRGC, the regime in Iran, they're now hiding in their bunkers, and in order to be able to change out this regime and give the Iranian people their country back, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. Now, whether that coalition can be done with the military, my hope, and I'm sure there's conversations going on with the military, which is separate from the IRGC in Iran, is there going to be enough of them that would flip and that would help a coalition to go after the IRGC and the Ayatollah regime that's in power in Iran, to remove them from power? The negotiations that are going on, of course, I believe we're in a great spot. President Trump has done a remarkable job, along with our military, to put us in a spot. I think also that we're seeing the fact that Iran is now letting some ships through the Straits of Hormuz probably means that they're starting to need cash. If you can keep these guys from getting any cash to pay Hezbollah, to pay the Houthis or Hamas, their proxy fighters around the region, that's going to help choke off their ability to hang on to power. So, power does come with the money that they have from oil and gas, and that's something that needs to be restricted and removed from them. And I think that puts us in a good spot to win this battle much quicker than what many think that it might take.
Now, you said finishing the job. In your opinion, what does finishing the job look like, and how long can that timeline be before the American people start to get worn out by this? Because, obviously it costs a lot of money. There's service members who are put at risk. There's concerns about a terror attack on the home front. There's also a major concern about gas prices right now. What kind of timeline is realistic for getting this job done that can be suitable and something American people can live with?
Yeah, I think actually, Ryan, in a month to 2 months, this is going to look very different. The amount of damage that was done to the Iranian Revolutionary Guards army and their assets, the planes, the ships, their submarines. I mean, we have really decimated their capabilities on the land and on the sea. And so I think that that now puts us in a great spot to negotiate. They need the cash from the oil and gas sales to continue to fund their terrorist operation. We all agree that this is the state, well, not anymore. It used to be in Congress. Every Republican and Democrat would support a resolution that Iran was the leading state sponsor of terrorism. We lost 50 Democrats a couple of weeks ago on that fact. But we're going to move ahead. We all know that Iran is a threat. This has been a problem for the last 40 years. This is not the start of a war. This is the end of a war. And President Trump is making the tough decision. And I support him. We need to go take the head of the snake off in the Middle East, and it's going to change that region tremendously. The amount of change that we've seen in the Gulf states, the fact that Saudi Arabia is supportive of the operations in Iran, Qatar, UAE, Egypt, and others, even Syria. Syria is in a transition as well, but they're actually helping as what they can by keeping open airspace and things like that. That wouldn't have happened over 4 years ago or 5 years ago, because it would have been a very different looking Middle East. And President Trump he knows the time is right. And that's why we have to take this opportunity and make sure there is a change in the leadership in Iran.
We should probably point out you were one of the bigger advocates for getting President Trump to work with Syria and negotiate and have a relationship with the new regime there. So that certainly is something that is noteworthy since the fall of Assad. Now, last question here. The White House and the Pentagon look like they're sending over a roughly $200 billion package to help with the conflict in Iran that would need to be greenlit by Congress. Is that something you think you can see Republicans supporting? It doesn't look like Democrats are going to be on board with this. You might get a couple here and there, but it looks like this is going to need to be a unified GOP effort if you're going to greenlight that money.
It is, and this will probably be the kind of the anchor of a reconciliation package that moves through Congress. I sit on the Budget Committee. We are hearing though that number may not be that high. That a lot of the funding that was passed in the big beautiful bill is being used now for the conflict in Iran. So that number may come down. We'll wait to see what the White House comes up with as far as an actual number. But after some of the meetings that I was in this past week, there's really more of a broader view and perspective of what the military's budget should look like over the next 5 years, rather than just this particular conflict. But I do think that I'm expecting some sort of a supplemental, but it may not be as high as $200 billion.
And how do you expect to pay for that? Because like you said, if you're going to use the reconciliation process, the same process you use for the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, it does need to be deficit neutral, is my understanding based off of Senate rules. Where are you going to find that funding?
Well, I think you're going to find a lot of it in the reforms that need to be made on welfare. What Vice President J.D. Vance is working on after the exposure of all the fraud and the waste in Minnesota. We're going to also see this in California. We all know it's there. It's just got to be pointed out and found, and of course proven that the fraud is rampant there. So I think you're going to see a lot of the reforms made on other spending to offset that, and I think that's something that needs to happen. So these two things are very important for the American taxpayer: freedom and security, but also making sure taxpayer dollars are used wisely.
All right, Congressman Marlin Stutzman from the great state of Indiana, thank you so much for joining.